To follow along with the written version of this pattern, use the link on screen now in the description below, or by going to clubcrochet.com/kobold. Hey there, it's Louie, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to crochet a kobold. These are little dragon minions that dragons use to get all their dirty work done. They are inspired by role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder, but I also use them for my tabletop game Stitched, which I'll talk about in a little bit. It's a tabletop game that you make all your pieces from home and actually play a game. This is my newest pattern in my series of fantasy-themed patterns that you can see all of on screen now. There's a bunch of different fantasy-themed patterns, including my goblinoids, which you might recognize. These were my first of my fantasy-themed patterns and probably my favorite. Shh. You didn't hear that. But I do have a whole bunch of new patterns as well, including dwarves, dragons, little baby dragons, and even a treasure chest that you can turn into a mimic, which I'm really proud of. But in this video, we're going to be making our kobold. Now, this pattern is so cool. I am extremely proud of it. And that is because, first off, look at how adorable they are. They're just so cute. But more impressively is that it has almost no sewing at all to make this whole piece. The only thing you need to sew on is the loincloth, but even that is like barely sewn on. I'm super duper proud of this pattern. I think you're really going to like it. We're also going to be learning how to add little miniature wings, even though it's not in the original design. I just thought it was too cute to not show you how to make that. So we're going to be learning miniature wings and all that in this video. This video is not designed for complete beginners. So if you are a complete beginner, I suggest trying my 101 series that you can find at crocheting101.com. That will get you started, and maybe try a somewhat easier pattern. My goblins here are a little bit easier, and other patterns like my triceratops pattern and there's a giant strawberry, things like that are a little bit easier to get started. I would say this pattern is somewhere around medium level difficulty, and that's going to be because of special stitches like the spiked bobble stitch that we're going to be using for the horns here and the nose, which are a specialty stitch that I actually made up. So I'm going to be going through every single stitch in this video, so you don't have to worry too much about needing to know every single stitch. But if you are a complete beginner and have never used yarn and crocheted anything before, this might be a little bit difficult for a first project. But you know what? I'd like to see it. If you can make it, make it. I would love to see what you make. Like I said before, this is designed for my tabletop game Stitched. It's a tabletop game that you make from home. It's war that you craft. I am super proud of this game. It's a tabletop game that's really, really cool. You crochet all your pieces and actually play it. And all the rules are actually online. You can find them all at stitchthegame.com. You can find that links to that in the description down below, which is where I'm going to put all the links that I'm talking about throughout this video. So if you want to go and find anything I'm talking about, check the description. Speaking of, a couple of other things to talk about before we get to the materials. The first is, please like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. It's a great way to support this channel and get a whole bunch of other videos. We do live crochet alongs every single week and come out with new patterns just like this monthly. So yeah, it's a great way to support the channel. If you need a little bit of extra help, we have an official Club Crochet Discord channel and Facebook group that you can find in the description that you can go to ask for help if you need it. We also do challenges, and just it's a fun way, fun place for you to have an actual crochet community involved with your crochet and show off some of your projects that you've been making. Speaking of, if you want to show me what you've made, I would love, love, love to see these made by someone else other than myself. I mean, I have probably like 30 of them now, but I'd love to see the ones that you make if you make them special with hairdos and special colors or something like that. If you'd like to, please share them on with us on social media. You can find all of our social media down below. We're pretty much at Club Crochet or club.crochet or official Club Crochet, pretty much everywhere. Look for our icon, which is this little like logo that I built. You can find it looking at the logo down below. We also have a right and a left-handed version of this video available, which you can find links to in the description down below to whatever the opposite one of what you're watching is. And if you want to, you can follow along using the time codes that are going to be in the description, at the bar at the bottom of this video, and in the PDF version of this pattern, so you can quickly jump around to different parts of the pattern if you're having a little bit more difficulty in one part or another. Okay, I think that is everything that I needed to talk about. Let's move on to the materials. For this pattern, you're going to need the following materials. I'm using all worsted weight yarn in 100% cotton. That's my favorite kind of yarn to use for amigurumi because it makes your stitches really clean and it's easy to find, it's relatively cheap, and you can find it in a lot of different colors. Specifically, the colors we're going to use for this pattern are going to be the main color. In this video, I'm going to be using maroon because it's a little easier to see on this backdrop. In addition to the main color, you're going to need white and brown. You will not need very much white or brown yarn. You'll just need the white for the teeth and the brown for the loincloth. This is actually way more yarn than I'm going to need for either of those parts, but you know, it's better to be safe than sorry. Because we're using all worsted weight yarn in 100% cotton, we're going to be using a size G 4mm crochet hook in this video. It's a good crochet hook to use for the worsted weight yarn. If you're using larger yarn or smaller yarn, if you want to make a giant chunky kobold and use chunky yarn, use a larger crochet hook. If you want to make a little miniature kobold that is actually the size for like D&D minis, you totally can use embroidery thread instead, and a size, probably like a size F crochet hook. Really small is what you're going to want, but some experimentation wouldn't hurt if you're making it that small. You'll also need a darning needle. I like using a crimped end darning needle like this. It helps me get in and out of hard to reach stitches. The majority of this pattern will be made without using a darning needle, but you will need it for sewing together the bottom of it regardless. I do have darning needles like this available in the shop in a bunch of different colors if you want to purchase them to help support this channel. I'll put links to everything available for purchase in the description. Speaking of, we're going to need safety eyes. I'm using 6mm safety eyes in this video. I suggest using 6mm. They look really good on this size of a piece, but obviously if you're making a larger kobold using chunky yarn, you want bigger eyes, and vice versa if you want to make it small. If you want to get a bottle of eyes available like this, we have them available in the shop. They come with, I think, 50 to 100 eyes, and obviously a fancy bottle with our logo on the top. It's just really cool, really cute. I like it a lot, and another great way to support this channel. Okay, well, I think that's all the materials that you're going to need. Oh, you're going to need stuffing as well. Obviously, you want a little bit of stuffing. I also like to sometimes stuff it with a nickel to help keep it weighed down. You don't really need to worry about that too much in this pattern because, you know, it can sit on things really easily thanks to its tail. But if you're making some other pieces, I sometimes like to sew it closed with a heavy nickel, but it's not really that necessary. Okay, well, I think that's everything that you need. Let's move on and start actually crocheting. We're going to start by making the teeth. Okay, so we're going to start by making the teeth, and we're going to start with our white yarn here. And you want to start by making a slip knot. Now, if you never made a slip knot before, here's a quick tutorial. You just make a loop on itself on the yarn like this. Pinch the loop right at the base and fold that over the end attached to the ball of yarn, and then pull that end through the loop like this. And that is how you make something called a slip knot. Once you have your slip knot, how it works is you place it on your crochet hook, and when you pull this tail end, nothing should happen. But when you pull the end attached to the ball of yarn, it should pull tight around your crochet hook. And you want it somewhat tight around the crochet hook, but not too tight. You don't want it choking the crochet hook. Okay, so to start our teeth, we're going to start by chaining 3. We're going to pinch the bottom of the chain right here to get it into position, and we're going to yarn over with the end attached to the ball. I like to hold my yarn with my 3 fingers, holding it like this and going over my index finger. So I have my 2 pincher fingers to hold yarn down. We're going to yarn over and chain 3. So we're going to pull this through the loop to make a chain like that. That's going to be our first chain. You want to make 3 of those. So there's 1, 2, and notice I'm scooping like that, 3. That makes it easier to get through your chains. Next, we're going to pull this pretty tight and single crochet into the back loop of the first chain that we made. Now, when you look at the chains, you'll notice that they're split into 3 different parts. We have the top loop, that's going to be right here. The bottom loop is going to be this one right here. And then if you turn the chain around, you see that little spine? That's going to be the back loop. So we're going to work our crochet hook into that back loop, and that's just going to make the stitch look a little bit cleaner. So we want to go into this loop right here. It can be a little bit difficult to get into that loop. How I like to do it is take my crochet hook and place it right under it and use my nail to help pry my crochet hook under like that. Once you're into that back loop, you want to pull the yarn pretty tight, which is going to create a point at the end of your tooth, and then single crochet 1. For a single crochet, we're going to yarn over onto the hook and then pull that through the loop that we're in. That's going to be more of a scoop. You want to kind of scoop it like that to get that loop through. And now you should have 2 loops on your hook, and you can yarn over and pull through those 2 loops for a single crochet. Again, I like to scoop it to make sure I get under both of those loops easily. Finally, we want to chain 1 more to knot at the end, and that way we can tie it onto our piece. So we're going to yarn over again and pull it through the loop for our 1 final chain stitch like that. Now we can cut the yarn. You don't need a very long end here. We're just going to use this to sew into the face. So that's probably fine. And just pull it all the way through and then pull it tight. And that is going to be how to make a tooth. Now I like to pinch the end. I always like to pinch the bottom right there just to give it more of a tooth look. And you want to make 2 of these teeth. You want to make 2 of these. Okay, so now that we have our tooth, I am going to make a bonus part of this pattern that is totally unnecessary, but if you want to make it, we will be making it right now. That's going to be making a little tiny wing for the back. Now, kobolds don't normally have wings, but I think, I don't know, it's just nice to have options. So if you want to make it into more of a little baby dragon man, then we can with these little wings. And they're very, very easy to make, especially now that you've learned how to make that tooth. Okay, so we're going to use our main color for these wings, which means we're going to be using our maroon color. And we're going to start the same way as our teeth. We're going to start with a slip knot, leaving a somewhat long end, not too crazy long. And we're going to get our crochet hook, go into that slip knot, and we're going to start by chaining 3. So we want to yarn over and chain 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now starting into the second chain from the hook, into the back loops only. Now all these stitches are going to be worked into the back loops of these chains, just like the tooth was. And into the back loop of the second chain from the hook, we're going to slip stitch 1 to make a mini picot. So we're going to go and turn this around like that, find that second chain from the hook, which is going to be that middle one right there. Get our crochet hook right over it and pry it open with your nail to help get your crochet hook into that stitch. And now we want to just slip stitch 1 stitch. For a slip stitch, we yarn over and we're going to pull it through all the loops on the hook. And we're going to really scoop it. So under that first stitch, that's going to be the chain, and then under the loop on the hook like that to make a little point. Okay, so for these wings, you want to repeat that process 3 times total. So there's our first repeat. Let's do it 2 more times. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Skip that first chain, work into the back loop of the second chain from the hook. We're going to fold it over, get into that back loop right here, help our crochet hook get in there with our nail, and then slip stitch 1. Pull through the stitch. I like to pull it a little bit tighter now, and then pull that same loop through the loop on the hook. Okay, we're going to do that 1 more time for our third repeat. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. Skip the first chain and get our crochet hook into the back loop of that second chain from the hook right here. And we're just going to slip stitch 1, pull through that stitch, and pull through the loop. Okay, so that's the first step of the wings. The next step is we're going to be working crochet stitches into some of these back loops along the back of our pieces to work our way back to the tail end. First, we're going to do a half double crochet into that second slip stitch right there. So you can see how where that second point is? That's where we want to do our first half double crochet. For a half double crochet, we're going to yarn over, go into the stitch that we want to. That's going to be right here on the back of this wing right there. And we're going to yarn over again and pull through the stitch, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. This one really use a scoop. It helps it a lot. There we go. Now into the next 2 stitches, that's going to be this back loop. Let me get my needle here. This back loop and the back loop of this stitch, where the point is, we want to do a single crochet 2 together. So we're going to go through this stitch first and pull one loop through. And then we're going to go through this second stitch and pull a second loop through on the hook, and then yarn over a third time and pull through all loops on the hook. Okay, let's do that. So we're going to go into the next stitch right here and yarn over and pull a loop through. We're doing a single crochet 2 together. It's a form of decreasing. Now we're going to go into the next stitch, which is going to be the one on the point right here. Yarn over again and pull that through the loop. Now you should have 3 loops on the hook. To finish it up, we yarn over and pull through all 3 loops like that. Okay, one last stitch. We want to go into the back loop of the last chain right here and just do a single crochet. So we yarn over, go through that stitch, yarn over again, and pull through 2 loops. And that's going to be the little wing. To finish it up, we just want to chain 1, so we yarn over and pull it through the loop for our chain. Cut the yarn somewhat short. Let's go like that short. And we can just pull it all the way through like that. And this is going to be our little wing. You want to go ahead and make 2 of these tiny wings if you can. Okay, so now we can start to work on the body. Okay, for the body, we're going to be using our maroon yarn again, and we're going to start with a magic loop. Now the body's going to be much more normal than the other parts of this because we're actually going to be crocheting it. So we're going to start with this magic loop. So we're going to hold the yarn down facing the ground and pinch it down with your thumb and middle finger like this, and go around your index finger and middle finger 2 times. So like 1 and 2, but on that second one we want to make an X on the front and 2 parallel lines on the back. Now take this tail end and the tail end from the beginning and go through your ring and pinky finger and close it in like that, and it's going to hold it down and keep it in place as we do the next part of this magic loop. Now we're going to have the back of our fingers facing us like this, and take your crochet hook and go under the first loop and then hook onto the second. Now take the hook and pull it under the first one and then scoop it around like that to make a loop. Now going over the first bar, yarn over the second one. So we're going to go over that first one, and I like to help guide the yarn over my crochet hook with my index finger like that. We get it over your crochet hook and then pull that through the loop on the hook to create a chain and lock everything into place like that. So that's going to hold everything into place. You can pull it off of your fingers now. Okay. Now for our piece, we're going to work all of our stitches into, for our first round at least, into this magic loop. We're going to work every stitch into this magic loop, and then we're going to pull this tail end tight, and it'll close that loop up around our stitches. Okay, now this pattern is going to be worked entirely in the round. We're going to keep going around in a spiral without ever turning. So just heads up. I'll tell you more what that means in a second. The other thing that I want to say is you want to get a just a little scrap of yarn that we're going to use for the end of this round. So grab a scrap of yarn in a different color than any of the colors you're using. So I'm going to use, I don't know, gold or something. There we go. And you don't need very much. That's going to be more than we're going to need, really. And we're just going to use this to keep track of where the ends of the rounds are. Okay, so for round 1 of our body, we're going to work 6 single crochets into the center of this magic loop. We've learned the single crochet a few times now, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. We're going to go into the center of the stitch like this, and that's going to be the center of the magic loop. We're going to yarn over with the end attached to the ball, pull it under the loop, then going over, yarn over again, and pull through 2 loops for our single crochet. We want to make 6 of those. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, now we can pull this tail end tight, and it should pull the magic loop nice and tight. Okay. Oh, we forgot. We were supposed to put our gold yarn in the center of that magic loop before we pulled it tight, but no worries. That's easy to fix. All we need to do is take our needle, go straight into the center, and then thread our gold yarn onto it, and then pull it through that magic loop. It would have been easier if we went and just put our gold yarn right in the center, but that's okay. That's going to be fine. And now I'll pull the tail end a little bit tighter. And I'm going to fold this gold yarn over, but under my end attached to the ball like this. over it like this. And this is going to help keep track of where that end of the round is. Now, like I just said, this is going to be worked in the round without turning at all. So we're going to keep working around in a spiral without ever turning. So we want to find our first single crochet that we made to get started on round 2. For round 2, we're going to count back 6 stitches to find our first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because in every single stitch that I just pointed out, we're going to do 2 single crochets. That's going to be an increase. So an increase into every stitch around, that's going to be 2 stitches per, or 2 single crochets per stitch. And it's going to bring you up from 6 stitches, which is what you should have right now before we start round 2, up to 12, which is what we'll have at the end of this round. So let's go ahead and get under that first stitch right here. That's going to be the one right next to the gold. Don't mess with that bit right there. That's going to be our chain. So we're just going to go under the 2 loops along the top right there, like so. And we're going to do an increase into that stitch. We're going to do 2 single crochets. Yarn over, pull it under those 2 loops. You really want to scoop it like that. And then yarn over again and pull through 2 loops on the hook to finish our single crochet. That's going to be 1 single crochet. We want to do 2 of them into the same stitch. So we're going to follow where that V is to go into that exact same stitch that we just were in right here. Yarn over again, pull it through that stitch, and then going over the stitch, we're going to yarn over and pull through 2, 1, and 2. And that's going to be an increase stitch. We want to do that for every single stitch all the way around. So let's do it into the next stitch right here. 2 single crochets into that next stitch right here for our second increase. There's 1 and 2. Now I should have crocheted around this tail end as we were going, but I totally messed that up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this tail end right here, fold it over, and we're going to do our increase into our next stitch right here, but we're going to work around our tail end as we go. That way we can lock this in and we don't have to worry about it later. So we're going to go into the next stitch right here, make sure you're under those 2 loops, and then take your tail end and place it over the crochet hook as well. And then we can finish our crochet. So we're going to yarn over, pull it under the stitch and that tail end like that, and then yarn over and pull through 2 for our increase. And then we're going to do it again into the same stitch that we just were in. There we go. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's our next increase, 7 and 8. That should be enough. We don't think we need to work around the tail end any more than that. Let's go into the next stitch right here, 9 and 10. And then into this last stitch right here will be 11 and 12. Okay, that's going to be the end of round 2. Okay, now we're going to pull this tail end up here, and we're going to continue on to round 3. Actually, before we get started in round 3, let's cut this yarn a little close. And I'm going to cut the tail end of our stitch marker too, just to get it out of our way. Okay, so for round 3, we're going to finally be making a spiked bobble, which is actually a pretty hard stitch. So throughout this stitch, just take your time once we get there. I'm going to take it really slow and teach you how to do it. I do have a video tutorial that I'll link to up here that will go through the stitch specifically. I'll put it in the description as well, but I obviously will be going through the stitch during this video too. But yeah, if you need extra help, that's where to go. Okay, so we're going to start round 3 by doing a single crochet into our very first stitch right here, and then an increase into the next stitch right here. So we're going to do single crochet 1 into the first stitch, increase into the next stitch, and we're going to repeat that 3 times, just 3, and then we're going to do something else fancy after that. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so first we're going to do a single crochet into our first stitch right here, and then an increase into our next stitch, which will be right here. Remember, an increase means 2 single crochets into the same stitch. So there's 1 and 2. Let's fold this stitch marker over. Okay, we want to repeat that process 3 times total. 1 single crochet, 1 increase, 3 times in a row. That was our first repeat. Let's do a second repeat. Single crochet 1, and then increase 1 into the next stitch right here. 1 and 2 in the same stitch. Now our third repeat, single crochet 1, and then increase 1 right here. 1 and 2. Okay, now is going to be our spiked bobble stitch. Pretty tricky, not going to lie, but we're going to take it one stitch at a time, and it's going to be okie dokie. All right, so for a spiked bobble, we're going to yarn over and then go into the next stitch right here. Then we'll yarn over again and pull through the stitch. Then we're going to yarn over again and pull through just 2 loops on the hook, just the first 2, 1 and 2. Okay, now we're going to repeat that one more time into the same stitch. You can see where see the hole right there? That's what we're going to work into. We're going to do that same exact steps. Yarn over, into the stitch, yarn over again and pull it through the stitch, yarn over and pull through just 2 loops, just the first 2 loops, 1 and 2 on the hook. Now we're going to do a mini picot while these stitches are still on our hook. That's going to be when we made the points of our wings, those are mini picot stitches. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain 2 and then work into the back loop of the first chain that we made while our crochet stitches are still on the hook. So we're going to yarn over and pull through just the first loop, 1, and we're going to do that again, yarn over, first loop, 2. Okay, now we're going to find the back loop of that first chain that we made. This is our first chain that we made. We want to find the back loop. That's going to be right along the outside right here. And we're going to get our crochet hook into that back loop. Now, if you can't get into that back loop, don't worry. You can still work into just that chain if you want to. I just find it looks a little bit better if you can get the yarn into that back loop. I like to present it, like get it ready, then get my crochet hook into place, and then pry it over my crochet hook like that. Then I yarn over, and we're going to pull through that stitch and the first loop on the hook. That's going to be right here, like that. And that's going to create a little tiny point at the end of your spiked bobble. Now we're going to do that first step again one more time into the same stitch. So we're going to yarn over, go into the exact same stitch. That's going to be where that hole is, like that. Yarn over again and pull it through that stitch. Yarn over and pull through just 2 of the loops, just the first 2 loops, 1 and 2. Now to finish this up, we're going to yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook. There should be 4 of them. And this one, really scoop it like that. It really helps you get through that stitch. And that's going to be a spiked bobble stitch. We're going to do another one in just a second, and we're going to use it for the nose as well. We're basically making the horns right now. Okay, so there's our spiked bobble stitch. Now into the next stitch, that's going to be this one right here. You can see where that one is kind of pulling it out. We're going to go into the next one right there, and we're going to just do an increase into that stitch. So into this stitch right here, 2 single crochets for an increase, 1 and 2. We accidentally pulled our tail end through this, which is a little bit annoying. There we go. I think I get it out. There we go. Okay. All right, so that's, I missed one. There we go. I see it. I see ya. Nice try, bub. There we go. Okay. All right, so we did our increase. Now we want to do 1 single crochet and then 1 increase after that. So 1 single crochet into this next stitch, like that, and then another increase into the next stitch right here. 1 and 2. Okay, into this last stitch, right, or into this next stitch, we want to do another spiked bobble. So we want to make another point thing. So I'm just going to do it kind of quick. So I'll yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over and pull it through, yarn over, pull through 2, and repeat that again. Yarn over, into the stitch, yarn over and pull it through, yarn over and pull through 2. Now we're going to do the mini picot. So we chain 2, 1 and 2. Go into the back loop of that first chain that we made by just like kind of twisting it around, get our crochet hook into place, and poke it through, and make a slip knot. Pull through, just 1 of those stitches. Now we're going to do that first step one more time. Yarn over, into that same stitch, yarn over and pull it through, yarn over and pull through 2, 1 and 2. And finally, yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook with a scoop. Scoop, 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 like that. And then I always like to pinch it and poke it out of there. Okay, and then into the very last stitch right here, we want to do an increase into this stitch right here. Just 2 single crochets in the same spot. 1 and 2. And we'll fold our stitch marker up like that. And we can continue on to round 4. By the way, at the end of that round, you should have 18 stitches around now. But now we're on to round 4, and we're going to be increasing it up just a little bit, up to 20 stitches around, and we're going to be making a second set of horns right under that first set, so that it looks kind of like this. Okay, so first we're going to do 2 single crochets and then an increase stitch. So 2 single crochets is going to be 1 and 2, and then an increase into the next stitch right here, 1 and 2 into the same stitch. Okay, and then we're going to do 1 single crochet and then another increase. 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and then another increase right after that. So two single crochets in the same stitch. Okay, next we're going to do 5 single crochets, and then we're going to do a mini picot stitch, which is what we did at the ends of all these horns. But I'll show you again how to do that. So single crochet 5 to get to there. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're going to do a mini picot, so we're going to chain 2. Pull through the stitch, that's 1 and 2. Find that back loop of that first chain, that's going to be right here along the back, and just make a slip stitch. Before I do that, I'm going to pull it a little tighter to make my point a little pointier. Pull it through that stitch and then through the loop on the hook to make a point. Okay, so that is our mini picot. Now we're going to do 6 single crochets before we get to the next one. So we're going to do 6 single crochets right here. We'll go 1, 2. That first one, by the way, it can be a little hard to see, but there's your last one. There's your next one. So that's 1, 2. Let's keep going. Let's get this tail end away so we don't accidentally pull it through. We'll go 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, now we're going to do another mini picot. So we're going to chain 2, 1, 2. Find that first stitch right here, and just get your crochet hook into that back loop, and then slip stitch 1. So yarn over, pull through, pull a little tighter, and then pull through on the hook. Every time I pull it tighter like that, I'm just adjusting my stitches to make it a little pointier. Okay, now to finish up this round, we just want to do 1 single crochet into the last 2 stitches right here. There you go, 1 and 2. Now, if you want to count your stitches, you should have 20 stitches and 2 mini picots. These mini picots do not count as stitches because they're going to be poking out anyhow. Okay, that's going to be the end of round 4. And now we're on to round 5. Finally, a round where it's pretty simple. All we need to do for round 5 is do a single crochet into every single stitch all the way around. But when we get to the mini picots, we should work around the mini picot stitches. So I'm just going to keep single crocheting around. This is a good chance for you to count your stitches as well, because you should have 20 stitches around. But once I get to the mini picots, I'll show you how to get around them so that they still poke on the outside of your stitches. We're almost there though. Now I like to pull my loop out like that, take our mini picot and fold it over, and then go into the next stitch right here, and then pull a loop through that stitch, and then pull everything tight so this other loop gets pulled tighter. And that way the spike is on the outside. Now that's probably a little extra. You don't really need to do that. You can probably just get around it. Let's just try. Let's just give it a shot, because we're just going to keep single crocheting around. And here's going to be the next one right there. Go into the stitch and just make sure that the mini picot is on the outside, and then single crochet 1. And that was okay. You see how the first way kind of made it poke out a little bit more? So what we're going to do is we're just going to pull it out a little bit like that. Okay, and now we just need 1 more single crochet right here, and that will be the end of round 5. Pull our stitch marker up. Okay, There we go. Now we're on to round 6. Round 6. Round 6 is going to be where we're going to be making our lip that goes over our piece. This is going to be right there. See that lip? Which means we're going to be doing another spiked bobble stitch, and we're going to be working into the front loops only, but really it's not that tricky. We're going to start with just doing a single crochet into the first stitch, into both loops of the first stitch, just regular old single crochet. Now we're going to work into the front loops only, meaning this loop closest to you. We're going to work under that one for the next few stitches. We're going to do, I think it's going to be 9 stitches here. So we're going to do a slip stitch into the first one, then 3 single crochets, a spiked bobble for our nose, and then 3 more single crochets and a slip stitch. And then we'll get back to working into both loops. So that's going to be under this first loop only. I like going up from the bottom like that. We're going to do a slip stitch into the first one. Pull through and pull through. There's your slip stitch. Now we're going to do 3 single crochets. So in this front loop right here, we want 1, 2, and 3. 3 single crochets. Now we're going to do a spiked bobble into that next stitch. Now remember, I'm going to go through all these stitches again, but it was what we used for our horns here on the back. So for a spiked bobble, again, we yarn over. This time we're only going in that front loop, so we want to go up from the bottom like that. So we're only into that front loop, and we want to do a spiked bobble. So we're going to yarn over again, pull through that loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops on the hook, 1 and 2. And then we're going to do that again. Yarn over into the stitch, only the front loop, pull through 2. And then we're going to do our mini picot for our spike. Now, if you don't want to do a mini picot here, you can have a little rounded nose, by the way, if you want to do a round nose instead. So just don't do this next step. Chain 2, 1, 2. Slip stitch into the back loop of the first chain that you made right here, like that. And then slip stitch, pull through and pull through. Okay, next we're going to do another of the step 1 into that same stitch. We're going to yarn over into the same exact stitch. You can see it really getting pulled out now. Yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2, 1 and 2. And then finish up the spiked bobble by yarning over and pulling through all 4 of the remaining loops on the hook. So I'm going to scoop it to get through that. Okay. Next, we're going to do 3 more single crochets into the front loops only, and then a slip stitch into the front loop only. So again, we're only in this front loop, 3 single crochets. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Next, we're going to do a slip stitch into that last one right here. And pull through. Okay, see that face coming together. Okay, now to finish up round 6 here, we're going to single crochet into the final 10 stitches all the way to the end of the round. And this time we can work under both loops, just like normal. So we're just single crocheting all the way around. Pretty easy. And this time you still should have 20 stitches around, but we're going to be working into those unused back loops from our last round in our round 7, which we're about to start. Okay, so that's going to be the end of that round. We'll pull our stitch marker up here, and we'll continue on to round 7. Now in round 7, like I just said, we're going to be working into those unused back loops from under the lip. You kind of see them there. We're going to pull our lip up, though, to get into them a little bit easier. You can, this is going to be my quick, trick for getting for sewing on the teeth before we even need to sew it on. So I actually figured out how to sew on the teeth so that you never even need to use a needle for this part. So we're going to grab our teeth and just add them real quick with just our crochet hook. So what you want to do is, before we even get into this stitch, we want to find our first back loop only. Okay, so that's going to be, I'm going to use my needle just to show you, but that's going to be right here is going to be your first back loop only. It's kind of hard to see because this one kind of looks like a back loop only, but that's not one. This one is it, right there. So we want to get into that first back loop only with our crochet hook coming from the back to the front, like that. And then we want to take one of these teeth and you want to pull through with the end that's a little bit fatter than the other end, because we want it to be so that the teeth are kind of pointing inwards. So I like to use this end. See how it's a little bit fatter than the other end? It's kind of hard to tell, I guess. I mean, it doesn't really matter that much. So we're going to yarn over with this end of this white yarn and just pull it through that stitch. If you want, you can just use your needle here instead. And then we're going to go into the next back loop right here, yarn over with this other tail end and pull that one under that second back loop like that. And then we can just pull both of these kind of tight so that they're under. Well, actually, you know what? You can just kind of just leave these a little loose too, because we're going to be working into those stitches in just a second around the outside of it. On the other end, we can do the same thing over here. So we're going to go in through the back of the last loop. That's going to be right here, is going to be where the last one is. Sometimes I like going the other way around so you can find out where it is. But you want to pull it from the inside out and do the same exact thing with this other tooth. Through the back of the stitch like that. Pull one side through. And then with this other end through the next stitch over, just to the left of it, and pull that second tooth, the second strand through like that. Okay, let's just leave, I know this looks funny, but let's just leave these tail ends loose. I'm not sure if it'll be easier to crochet around them yet or not. And let's get back into the magic, or the maroon loop. Okay, now we're gonna pull our stitch marker up here, and we're gonna start by just single crocheting into the first stitch, just the normal regular first stitch into both loops like that. Now, into the back loop of the first chain from the hook right there, that's going to be the one that you just worked that white stitch into. So right here, like that, you want to do a single crochet into that stitch. So we're going to yarn over, pull through that stitch, pull a little tighter, yarn over and pull through two, like that. Into the next two stitches, that's going to be this next stitch over and this stitch. We want to do a decrease stitch. So we're going to go into that stitch, and basically you can either use the single crochet two together, which is what we used on the wing, or you can use a sharp decrease. I personally like using a sharp decrease, and I'll show you how to do that. You go into this next stitch right here, yarn over and pull it through the stitch. Then you go into the next stitch right here, yarn over again and pull through the stitch and the two loops on the hook, 1 and 2. That's going to be a sharp decrease, and we'll be using it again a little later as we get to the tail and again on the mouth in just a second. So there's your decrease. So we want 1 single crochet, 1 decrease. Now we're going to do 3 more single crochets and then another decrease. So here's the next back loop. We'll do a single crochet into that stitch, 1. The next back loop right here, a second single crochet, and then this back loop here will be our 3rd single crochet. Don't worry about like messing up the face too much. This yarn is really is very forgiving. Okay, so next we're going to do another decrease stitch into the next 2 stitches. So that's going to be this one and that one. So right here, yarn over and pull through, and then into the next stitch right here, yarn over and pull through, and then pull that same loop through the 2 on the hook, 1 and 2 for our decrease. And then into our very last stitch, that's going to be the last one with this white yarn coming out of it because we pulled the 2 through it. We're going to yarn over, pull it through, and then yarn over and pull through 2, like so. Okay, we're still going to leave these teeth just hanging. We'll fix them in just a second. But now we can go into the next stitch, which is going to be right here after this slip stitch. You see how this one kind of pulls up weird? It's going to be this stitch right there. And we can finally start working into both loops again and do 10 more single crochets to get to the end of the round. So we're going to go into this next stitch here and yarn over, pull through 2. And we're just going to do single crochets all the way till we get to the end of the round, working into both loops, just like normal. Now the teeth could be added on a little later. It's not really that hard to add the teeth on later as well, but I do find that this does save you a little bit of time, you know? It's not absolutely necessary, but it doesn't hurt. So let's go ahead and finish these teeth up now that we finished this round up. We just finished up the end of round 7, but before we continue, I'm just going to go ahead and fix these teeth. I'm going to pull them tight enough so that this knot pulls through the stitch itself. So we're going to pull just tight enough. You want to be careful not to accidentally break the yarn, but see how that knot gets pulled through? We want to do that for all of them. So here's the next one right there. And once the 2 knots are pulled through next to each other, we can double knot them together and cut it close. So like this, 1 and 2, like that. And then we can take our tiny itty bitty scissors, cut it nice and short. And we're gonna save this later with our other scraps so that we can stuff it into the body. And then we'll do the same on this other tooth. I'm gonna pull it, open it a little bit, pull it tight enough on the inside so that the knots get pulled through. Okay. Just be careful not to break the yarn. There's 1 knot, 2 knots, and then double knot together. 1 and 2. Now we can cut it nice and close and put it with our pile of threads. Pile of Threads could be a good band name. Okay. There's our little teeth added on before we're even supposed to. Makes it so much easier though. Look how cute they look. Okay. Now let's get our crochet hook into our piece. Pull a little tighter and fold our stitch marker over and continue on to round 8. For round 8, it's really easy. We're just going to single crochet into every stitch around, into all the normal stitches, not into the lip stitch right here, but into the bottom, into the body. There should be 18 stitches around now, so you can count your stitches at this round. And we're going to work under both loops. So there's 1, 2, make sure you're working under both loops, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and hey, if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe down below. It does help this channel out a bunch. And it's super free and easy to do. You just got to hit the like button and subscribe button. Also, we do live crochet alongs all the time, so that's a super good reason to subscribe. You can see whenever we're online. Okay. That's going to be the end of that round. Should have 18 stitches around now. You can kind of see how our face is coming together. Let's go ahead and poke our little nose a little bit more. But he's looking pretty cute already. Okay, now we'll pull our stitch marker up, get our crochet hook into place, and we'll continue on to round 9. Now for round 9, we're actually going to start with a bobble stitch. A bobble stitch is kind of like our spiked bobble here, except without the spike. It's actually easier, in my opinion, than the spiked bobble. All you have to do is do the first 2 steps of the spiked bobble 4 times instead of 2, 3 times. So we're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch right here, yarn over and pull it through, then yarn over and pull through 2. You know, just like the beginning of the spike bobble. We're going to repeat that process 4 times total. So let's do our second repeat, yarn over into the same stitch, yarn over and pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, 1, and 2. There's our second. We want to do 4 of those, yarn over into the stitch and pull through, going over the stitch, we're going to yarn over and pull through 2, 1, 2. One more repeat, yarn over, into the stitch and pull it through, over the stitch, pull through 2. And there are our 4 loops. I mean, actually, now you should have 5 loops on the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we can yarn over and pull through all the loops with a scoop like that. Okay. So there's our bobble stitch. We're going to be using those for the arms and the legs. So this is going to be our left arm. Okay, now we want to do 8 single crochets to get to the next arm. So into both loops, just like normal. We're going to do 8 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6, 7, and here will be 8. See how it's coming together? Now we'll do another bobble stitch in this next stitch for our next arm. So I'm going to do that one pretty quick. Yarn over into the stitch, pull through 2, and repeat it 4 times. There's second, third, and fourth. Yarn over and pull through all the loops of the scoop, and then continue on. We're gonna do, to finish this up, oh, nope, that's right. We're gonna do 3 single crochets after that bobble stitch. Sorry, I thought there weren't many stitches after this, but there are. I forgot about the tail. So we're gonna do 3 single crochets and then 2 increases in a row. So first do 3 single crochets. It's gonna be 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to do an increase into the next 2 stitches. So 2 increases in a row. Each increase includes 2 single crochets. So that's 4 single crochets, but 2 for each stitch. Okay, I could say that a million different ways, I guess. Let's go into this next stitch and do our first increase. There's 1 into the same stitch, 2. So there's 2 into the same stitch. Now we'll do another increase into the next stitch right here. It's going to be 1 into the same stitch, 2. Like that. Okay, so that's going to be your 2 increases in a row. Next, we're going to finish up by doing 3 single crochets to get to the end of the round. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And those increases there are going to help to make our tail as we go. We're going to make our tail so we don't even have to sew the tail on. It's really cool. I'm really proud of it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and pull our stitch marker up, and that's going to be the end of round 9. And you should now have 20 stitches around if you want to count your stitches. Before we continue on to round 10, this is your chance to add the eyes and the teeth. Now, if we didn't already add the teeth, I would be pulling through those stitches from the inside like this. And I would just take my needle, find the stitches that we need like so, and just poke it through with the end attached and pull it through, and then pull both ends in and make sure it's knotted and tie it tight. That's how I'd add the teeth if I didn't already add the teeth with our little shortcut method. Next, we want to add eyes. So I'm going to be using 6mm safety eyes like this, bottle eyes in the shop. If you want to buy one, it would be greatly appreciated. We're just going to take 2 of these eyes out and then 2 of our little backings like that. Okay, now the eyes are pretty easy. They're just going to go right above in the corners of the mouth between rounds 6 and 7. So that's going to be right here. And it's going to actually be, I like to do it, if you look at on this guy, I like to do it right where that corner of the cheek meets, right like here. So right above the tooth. So it's going to be basically like 3 stitches away from the nose too, into this stitch right there. And I just place it into place and then wiggle it until it gets into the face. Place it into place, wiggle it until it gets into the face. I rhymed. Oh my gosh, I'm so talented. Okay, so now I do like to make sure that the eye is under the lip if I can. See how I like trying to get it so that this end is under that lip? That's going to really make it look super cute. Look how cute that looks when you do it like that. Highly suggested. And then we'll just take the backing and place it on the back and lock it into place. Really, we should probably put both eyes on before we lock them into place so that we know that we like where they're at, but I like to live on the edge. I like to live a life on the edge. Okay, let's get this guy. Oh, and then the other eye is the same thing, just over the tooth into that corner of the lip. So that's going to be right here, I believe. I believe that this stitch is right here, and then once I place it into place, I wiggle, 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 wiggle. For sure. Okay, like that. And that's going to be the second placement of the eye. Take our backing and just lock it into place. Look at how much quicker I'm not kidding. Adding the teeth on now or at the place where we added them on is so much faster. I just learned how to do that in the last 2 kobolds that I made. It feels like every time I make one, I learned a different little trick. Now I'm gonna try to make sure this is just kind of hidden in there by pulling this cheek up like that, and maybe kind of trying to like pull the knot in a little bit on the inside. Yeah, that looked like it. Actually, yeah, that totally helped. Okay, now we can keep on crocheting on. That should be a t-shirt. Okay, pull our stitch marker up, and we're going to continue on to round 10. We're actually almost done with our piece. For round 10, we're going to do 14 single crochets. 14, and then 2 increases in a row, and then 4 more single crochets. So let's go ahead and just get started. We're going to do our 14 single crochets. The bobble stitch is kind of weird to get into. Look at the top. Make sure you're under both those loops. That's all I can say. But it can be a little bit weird. We're going to do 14. So there's 1, 2, 3, we'll go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, 11, 12, 13, and here will be 14. Okay, now you want to do 2 increases in a row, just like we did last round. So we want our first increase right here, 2 in the same stitch. So there's 1 and 2, and then another increase into the next stitch right here. There's 1 and 2 into the same stitch. And to finish this round up, we're gonna do 4 single crochets, 1 to the next 4 stitches right here. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that'll be the end of round 10. You should have 22 stitches around if you'd like to count your stitches now. Can you tell that I'm recording this really late at night? I'm so weird. I'm acting like I don't know. It's just late. Okay, so now I'm on to round 11. For round 11, we're going to do 2 single crochets, and then we're going to do our bobble stitches for our feet. So we're going to start by doing 2 single crochets. There's 1 and 2, and then our bobble stitch for our feet. So it's the same way as our bobble stitch for our arm. Yarn over, into the stitch and pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and repeat that 4 times total. Yarn over, into the stitch, pull through 2. Once you get it, it goes so quick. Look at that. Get that piece of my cat's fur out of there. And then yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook with the scoop to finish our bobble stitch. Okay, so now in between bobble stitches, in between our legs, we want to do 5 single crochets. So there's 5 single crochets in between. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, like that. And then we want to do another bobble stitch into this next stitch right here. So that's going to be right there. We're going to yarn over, go into that same, or into the stitch and do another bobble stitch. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook with the scoop. And that's going to be the end of that bobble stitch. Next we'll do 7 single crochets and then an increase. So 7 single crochets starting here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this will be 7. Now we'll do an increase into the next stitch after those 7 single crochets. So right here, an increase. 1 and 2 into the same stitch. Now we'll do 5 more single crochets to get to the end of the round. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, now here is your chance if you want to. By the way, this is the end of round 11. We're gonna pull our stitch marker up now. Now, round 12, we're gonna start decreasing it down to make our tail and pretty much finish it up. Now's your chance. If you wanna add wings, you wanna add them now. I like to pull the wings through. Now, personally, I don't think I like, I don't know. I don't hate the wings. I think they look, no, I take it back. I really do like the wings. It's just kobolds in D&D, where these are inspired from, don't have wings. So I don't usually like adding wings if I can avoid it. But you know what? For this video, let's do it. Let's live life on the edge. Why not? For the wings, I like to go just under the bottom spike. So you can see it right here on the thing. Looks like, so if you look for where that bottom spike is, right here, you want to go 2 stitches or 3 stitches under it. So that's 1, 2, 3 to start it. So there's 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be right here is one wing, and then I like to go angled in like that. So with this, we want to take our wing, make sure that it's pointing down so that the 2 pointy ends are pointing down, because this wouldn't work. That's going to go like that. We're going to take the top of the wing, thread it onto our needle, and pull it into the body like that. We can also use a crochet hook to do this. So let's go into the next one. We're going to go 1 stitch under that right here, come out through the inside, and we're going to pull through the bottom loop of the wing, pull it through that stitch. Once they're into those stitches, I want to pull it tight enough so that these knots get pulled onto the body, just like the teeth. So we're going to go on the inside here, and we're going to pull these 2 ends tight enough so that they pull the knots through. Pull it just tight enough. That one got the knot through pretty easy, and this one as well. Pretty easy. See how they're in there? Perfect. And we're just going to double knot those together on the inside. Maybe 1 and 2. Okay. We'll cut them pretty short. That's pretty good. And that's going to be one of the wings sewn on. Okay, now the next wing that we like to sew on, let's look at our other guy, is just going to be a few stitches over from that first one. So it looks like we're going to do from the top of the first wing, we're going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches, and then go right under that. So for the top of the wing, right here, we'll go over 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches, and then go 1 down right here. And that should be the right spots. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I'll just thread it on the needle. 1, and then 1 stitch under that for the bottom. So let's see, I only threaded the top. Now I want to thread the bottom. Like that. Pull the knots just tight enough. Again, I don't think these wings do anything. In my world, these wings are just for show, and they're just because they're adorable. I don't think they can hold the weight of them. But maybe for a kobold that really believes in itself, it can try to fly. And it can go like, I don't know. We'll pull it tight enough now so that these wings poke on out. I like to skew them, get them into the right position. Looks pretty good. Poke that eye out a little bit. Okay, so let's finish up our kobold now. We need to finish up the bottom, and then we can add our loincloth afterwards. Pull our stitch marker up, and we're going to continue on to round 12. For round 12, we'll do a single crochet into our first stitch right here. Just 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and then a sharp decrease into the next 2 stitches. So again, we did that on the mouth. We'll go into the next stitch here, pull a loop through, and then into the next stitch right here, pull our second loop through, and pull that second one through the 2 on the hook with a scoop like that to make a knot. So there's 1 and then a decrease. We're going to repeat that process 5 times, just 5 times. So there's our first There's 1 repeat. Let's do our next repeat, single crochet 1, and then sharp decrease. 1, 2, pull through, both, like that. There's our second repeat. Let's do our third repeat, single crochet 1, sharp decrease, 1, 2, pull through 2. Okay, let's do it one more time, or 2 more times, single crochet 1, skip 1, 2, pull through 2. That should be my 4th repeat. So there's 1 repeat, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay, so 1 more of those repeats. Single crochet 1, and then decrease. 1, 2, pull through 2. Okay, now is the fun part. You want to skip a few stitches. So we're going to skip 5 stitches actually, and then we're going to do 1 more single crochet and then another decrease at the end. So skip 5 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where we're going to skip. And then into the 6th one right there, we want to do a single crochet. So we're going to get our crochet hook into place like that, and then do a single crochet into that stitch. Yarn over, pull it through the stitch. Once it's through the stitch, you can pull tight to pull those stitches tight, and see how it's going to make our little tail. And then we're just going to single crochet 1. And then finally do 1 more decrease into these last 2. So yarn over, pull through, into this last one, pull through, and pull through 2. Okay, now we're going to pull our stitch marker up, but really this is the end of our piece. We only have 1 more round to go. So if you don't want to use a stitch marker here, I totally get it. I usually don't. But for the video, we will. Now I'm going to stuff it just a little bit right now, just because it's going to be a little bit easier to stuff right now than it will later. So I'm going to try to get stuffing over the head. So we're going to try to go on top, or over the top of the lip, just for the first wave of thread, or of stuffing. And then let's go ahead and take all of our tail ends from throughout our piece and stuff those in there as well to limit our waste. Okay. Oh my gosh, you're so cute. So cute. Okay. Pull our stitch marker tighter. All right, so now we'll pull a stitch marker up. We're going to continue on to round 13. This is going to be our last round. We're just going to do a sharp decrease into every stitch around. There should be 12 stitches around right now, so by doing a sharp decrease into every one of them, you're going to go down from 12 down to 6. So let's go into this first one right here. We'll go pull a loop through like that, and then into the next stitch here, pull a second loop through, and pull that second loop through the 2 on the hook like that. And we'll repeat that 6 times total. So there's 1 into the next stitch, 1, 2, pull through 2. There's 2. Here's our third, 1, 2, pull through 2. Here's our fourth. Once it gets this small, I kind of just pinch it and hold it down like that to get leverage into my stitches, because it can be kind of hard to get into the stitches. Here's our 5th one, 1, 2, and then pull through those last 2, and then into the last 2 stitches right here. There's 1 and 2. Okay, that's going to be our last decrease. There should be 6 decreases total. Now we can cut the yarn. You want a somewhat long end, just like, actually, let's go like that long. This is going to be because we're going to sew it closed, and we're going to sew the tail together with the same end. So then we can pull this loop all the way out like that. And before we sew it closed, let's stuff it up and get rid of our stitch marker. Let's see if we can just pull, can we just pull our stitch marker out? Like, wow. Oh my gosh, it totally worked. That's crazy. All right, now I'm just gonna stuff our guy up with this stitch marker. Like that. And we'll get a little bit more stuffing. You don't really need too much more stuffing. If you want, you can sew in, I usually like to stuff my characters up with a nickel, which will add a little tiny bit of weight. You can also add magnets into the base so that it can perch on anything metal, so that you can have like a gargoyle or something and perch it onto certain things. That would be actually super cute. Highly suggested. Super cute idea. Okay, I think that's probably, we can do just a tiny bit more stuffing. I like my Kobold chubby. Oh, we got just a little bit more right in the base. So we're going to try to get into the tail itself with that last bit. Okay. All right. Now is, in my opinion, my favorite part, because I used to have to sew this tail on, but now you don't have to, and it's so cool. So you're going to do, what you're going to do is you're going to take this tail end and thread it onto our needle like this. And we're going to start by sewing the bottom closed. To sew it closed, we're just going to go through all the front loops around. So just the front loops of all the stitches around. If you want to count backwards 6, you'll find the first one. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's going to be your first stitch only through that front loop. Just like that. Just going to pull through all those front loops. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the last front loop. It kind of, the last one's a kind of weird one, but it's right there. 6. And then I like to pinch it right at the base and then pull it tight to pull it nice and closed. And then we'll go right back into the body, really anywhere, doesn't really matter. And then come back out through the base of this stitch right there, right at the base of that stitch. Okay, like that, pull it tighter. That's pretty good. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna sew this tail closed. So what I like to do is go around to the adjacent stitch on the opposite side that's perpendicular to the one that you're currently on. So right across it, right there, and then come out through the same stitch you just went into, like that. Like that. And then go up to the next stitch, and then into the opposite stitch across from it. And then up to the next stitch right here, out through the stitch across from it. And then out through this last stitch and out through the same stitch you just came out of. And then we're going to go back up the piece too. You don't really need to go back up it if you don't want to. You can kind of just like sew it closed and hide the end. But I'm going to instead go up and across to where so basically we're going to go like this and create little V's. So we're going to go through this stitch. We're going to follow it down. If you can, there we go, like this. There's one. This next one right here. There's 2. And then we'll go just through somewhere on the base. Let's go right through the middle of that stitch. And then we'll just find some stitches on the inside that I can go around the outside of it, like this. So you can't really see it, but you can kind of see where it's getting pulled in right there? It's because I'm in the back of that stitch. That's just to help secure the stitch in, and I'll go through somewhere along the top like this and pull it all the way through. And then we can just cut it nice and close and pinch slightly to hide that end in there. Okay, so that's going to be the majority of your dragon or your kobold done. See, the wings make me feel like it's a dragon, but it's not a dragon. You're a kobold. Don't you lie to me. Okay, so the last thing we want to do is we want to add a little tiny loin cloth. And obviously this is completely optional, but I don't want my kobold being naked. So I'm going to go ahead and get my brown yarn to get started. For our loincloth, it's actually pretty easy. You want to start with a pretty long end, like that long, and make a slip knot, just like the teeth, like that. Okay, now you want to get your crochet hook in there and start by chaining 3. So we're yarn over, pull through, like that. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we're going to turn and we're going to skip the first chain. And we're going to single crochet into the back, or you don't really need to do back loops actually. You can just do the top loop like this and single crochet into the next 2 stitches. So here's our first one. We'll do 1 single crochet there, and then to the next one right here, we'll do our second single crochet. So there's 1 and 2. So single crochet into both of those back loops. Pretty easy, not too crazy. Now we're going to turn and chain 1 at the same time. So I usually like to chain and turn like that. Now you can work into both loops. You can work into the back loop, into the front loop. Doesn't really matter. We're going to work into both loops though, like this. And we're going to single crochet into both of these stitches. So there's our first one, single crochet 1, and then the next one right here. The next one's kind of hard to get into. You kind of need to like tweak the ends around the crochet hook because of the way it like folds down, but like that, and then single crochet through that. Okay, just like that. Okay, so that's going to be 2 single crochets to get to the end of that round. Now for our last row. For our last row, we're going to chain 1, turn, and then single crochet into the last 2 stitches. So skip our chain and single crochet under both loops, or front loop or back loop, doesn't really matter. You can add the front loop or the back loop to make a little bit extra design, but I'm just going to go into both loops of both of those stitches like that. And see, we're just basically creating a little tiny square. And then we're going to yarn over, chain 1, and we want to pull a pretty long end, like maybe like that long, and cut the end, and then pull it all the way through to create a knot. Now, you want to take this end, thread it onto our needle, really whichever end you want, and we're going to start by going through one of the legs and then out like 4 stitches over. So 1, 2, 3, like right here. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, till it goes all the way to the end, and then we're going to go back around to where we started in, right there, and come out through the same stitch you just came out of like that. Okay, the stuffing's kind of poking through, which is annoying, but whatever. And then we're going to go across and go through one side of this tail and out through the other one right here like this. Actually, I'm going to go through 2 stitches over like this to leave a whole stitch in between. Like that. And let it just dangle there. Now we can thread the other end, and we're going to do the exact same thing on the opposite side. Thread it onto our needle. Go into the top of the next foot, a few stitches over from that foot right there, and out. And we'll pull it pretty tight so that it's at least centered on the body. And then go around and into the same stitch, and then out through the same stitch you just came out of. And then finally, we're going to go in through where this other tail end is coming out, and out through where it went in, like this. Just a stitch away, leaving a space in the center. And then we're going to take these 2 tail ends and double knot them. You do not need to double knot them tight. This is all mostly just for show. Just going to double knot them on the outside. And then we're just going to cut them somewhat short. You do want to leave a little bit of an end, like that, because you want it to look like it's knotted in the back like that. And then we'll just get rid of all this, all these little stuffing bits. And there we go. We have a tiny baby kobold with wings. I don't even know if it's a baby. I feel like this is just the normal size for kobolds. But pretty cute. I am a fan, even with his cute little wings that he can't even use. You're adorable. All right, and that is going to be our little miniature kobold with wings made. Oh my gosh, this guy is so freaking cute. I love it. Well, thank you so much for crocheting this along with me. If you like this pattern, prove it. Like and subscribe down below if you haven't already. I do live crochet alongs every week, and we have a whole bunch of new patterns available all the time. If you want to crochet more fantasy themed patterns like this, check out my fantasy themed ones you can find on screen now. You can find them all at clubcrochet.com/fantasy. fantasy, and they're actually all available with a Club Crochet membership. Members get early access to future patterns, access to my exclusive library of tutorials. There's almost 300 patterns, and I add new ones every single month to this library. All of them have full video tutorials just like this and printable PDFs. It's a great way to support us monetarily, and plans start at only $5 a month, and you can even get a free trial to try them out and try some other patterns out if you want to. And yeah, like I said, it's a great way to support the channel, and you can learn more at just clubcrochet.com. I also made these things for a tabletop game that I made called Stitched, War You Can Craft. You can find all the rules at stitchedthegame.com. It includes a bunch of rules for all of our little goblins here, and it's a really fun game that you crochet all your pieces and then you actually just like play a game with them. It's a little complicated, but don't let that scare you away. It is so cool, and I'm just really proud of it. I hope you like it. I'll put links to that in the description down below. If you finish one of these, please share your project with us, where you can find all of our social media accounts down below, and please tag us. I would love to see a finished crocheted kobold that I didn't make. I just think it's so cool when people share something that they made using my pattern. I'm just like, what? It's just way cool. So thank you so much for watching again. Let's see, is there anything that I'm forgetting to say? I don't think so. Well, anyhow, without further ado, pasta la pizza, happy hooking, and I'll see you in the live streams. All right, so how does a kobold say goodbye? I'm thinking he's like, "Grr, grr."